Today on the Plant Cunning podcast, we are honored and excited to have Betzy Bancroft on the show. How are you, Betsy?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So, Betsy, you're a co-founder and teacher at the VCIH, the Vermont Center for Integrative Herbalism, and at Sage Mountain, which is not too far from you, right? You live nearby Sage Mountain?
I live right next door to Sage Mountain. I'm like right there. And
Amazing.
yeah, I feel super blessed. I really do.
Yeah, what a cool neighbor to have. Both in both of your instances. They're lucky to have you and you're lucky to be next to them. And you're also in addition to being an herbal educator, you're an experienced herbalist. You've been doing this for decades, and you're on
Yes.
the advisory board of the United Plant Savers.
It's not a very active advisory board, I admit, but yes, I feel honored to serve United Plant Savers.
Yeah, they're doing such amazing work. So we
Mhm.
appreciate your efforts that go into that as well. But also, you are an author of a new book, The Herbal Pharmacy, The Science and Magic of Preparing and Administering Plant Medicine.
Yes, and that's been a very exciting endeavor. I've been teaching for decades, as you mentioned, and so I put many of my different curriculums, not the therapeutics, is like that's a whole nother thing. And
Mhm.
as a teacher, one of my skills is to focus. Like, what do I need to have? So I put my, harvesting curriculum and my medicine making curriculum and formulation curriculum and so forth. I put it all together in this book. And
Yeah,
so it's a life
it's
endeavor.
awesome.
I think it's really great when somebody who has had a lot of experience teaching something puts it all together. Because you can distill knowledge and experience from decades and make it in. I mean, like it's a foundational book. It's like somebody can get this book who doesn't know anything about herbs and learn how to make all the different preparations and really learn how to become an herbalist. And there's something that's special about that, like being able to distill that knowledge. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's one of my superpowers as a teacher. Uh,
Yeah.
three things: being able to end class on time, which means that I
That's
manage.
rare. That's
No.
It's a skill. It's
Yeah.
definitely a skill, but it involves like understanding how much depth versus breadth you can actually get covered in a given amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also the other thing that I tried to include in the book, again, being a teacher, is I tried to address different learning styles. So there's
Mhm.
photographs, like step-by-step photographs.
Yeah.
There's detailed paragraphs of like written narrative of all the stuff. And then also step-by-step instructions, which I
Right.
learned from a friend is very useful for people who have a faster moving mind that they can just like, oh yeah, da 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 da. But again, different
Mhm.
people learn different ways. And
Yeah, true.
so I tried to cover those bases for people. And
Mhm.
then one of my friends told me that my other superpower as a teacher is yeah, making complicated things accessible and breaking it down to
Mm.
a manageable level. So I hope I've done that in this book as well.
Definitely. Yeah. I love the different, like you mentioned, the different styles, like the photograph. Like, I think it's really helpful to see it laid out. Because, yeah, some people do want to see like that recipe step by step. And then some people are visual learners, some people are kinetic learners. They're not actually going to learn until they use your book and make the thing, you know?
It's totally true.
Yeah. What's your learning style? How do you like to learn?
I like to read.
Yeah.
I like to, especially because that's an interesting question for a person who's been studying for all this time. Because the way I conceptualize it is I have like a framework, kind of like a tree, that's
Mm.
already in my brain. And so I learn new things and I like add them like leaves onto the tree.
Yes.
You know what I
Cool.
mean? And I'm better at have kind of a low and slow mind. And so I'm better at like reading a whole bunch about something like in the last several years, I've read a lot about the human microbiome. And
Mm.
now I'm on to my next endeavor that I'm really curious to read a lot about is metabolism,
Mm.
which
Cool.
feeds into my fascination with the human microbiome and so forth.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's I'll pick a new topic and like get deep into it. And then once I've taken in a variety of perspectives and resources and whatnot, then I synthesize it in my mind. And then I can explain it back out to classes, students, videos, books, however it shows up.
Yeah, that's like the final step of learning something is being able to teach it.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
also the fun thing about being a teacher, like the dedication to the book is to students and teachers and students because it's a messy combination of all of the above. And like I said, one of the things I like best about being a teacher is that I get to keep learning. I have really good reasons to study and keep learning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, being a teacher and then and writing as well, like, you get to
Mm.
consolidate the knowledge that you've gained. It really adds a depth to it. But I also really like what you're saying with the you have this kind of framework, this tree that with the leaves, and I think that's a really important part of knowledge and learning is this a systemic aspect of it, like having a structure, a framework, and that's also what I really like about this book too. Is like it has a very strong framework where you can like add everything, and you have this fundamental structure that then allows you to add to that. I think my
Yeah.
favorite teachers have that do that kind of a thing, like they have
Mhm.
that focus on the foundational structures of
Mm.
learning.
Yeah, it makes it easier to follow, and also for a textbook, if somebody's really only interested in folk medicine or, again, they're beginners or whatnot, they don't have to get as far into the chapters as the chemistry. They can say,
Mm.
okay, folk method, that's enough for me. I'm good. And
Yeah. So, what brought you to the plant path? What got you interested in all this in the first place?
I grew up outdoors where I grew up in, actually, I grew up in Roseland, New Jersey.
Cool.
And I like to say I'm from Roseland because I like
Yeah.
roses,
Right.
but it was rapidly suburbanizing, in the 1960s when I was a little kid. And, but it gave me, a connection and appreciation for nature, which is, I think, the big reason I ended up an herbalist.
Mhm.
And then I got interested in nutrition by the time I was in high school or so. I was curious about nutrition and then curious about health in general. And then somewhere along the line, I met David Winston and he kind of twisted my arm to take his herb studies program. So I did. I ended up in herb school. I didn't know you could go to herb school. I didn't know that becoming an herbalist was even a thing. But I stuck with it, and I was blessed to be in a class that lasted for 3 years instead of two, basically, because
Mm.
his books were outgrowing his apartment at the time.
Mm,
And then I started working at Herbalist and Alchemist, and I did that for 16 years or so. And then he put me up to teaching. He said, "Here, you teach it," meaning the medicine making part of his course.
Yeah.
So I've had good doors open to me. I feel really privileged that not only that I got into his course, but then working at Herbalist and Alchemist, I had to go sell tinctures at herb conferences.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I met lots of other teachers, and yeah, and furthered my education. And
Who else? Like you studied with David Winston, you got to actually make medicines with herbalists and alchemists. So, who else did you meet and who are some of your other mentors along the way?
Oh, well, the person who inspired me the most that I met at those early herb conferences was Rosemary Gladstar. Just her,
Uh-huh.
like, here, we can all do this, and we don't even need a classroom. We just like, it was really, she's just such a sprightly and lovely human.
Mm,
Um, and then I took a really inspiring class with Amanda McQuaid Crawford back in those days too. And then I actually got to study with William LeSassier
cool.
not too long before he passed. If you have ever heard of that
Yes.
quintessential weekend program that
Yes.
an actual recording came out of and so forth, I was one of the instigators along with Claudia Keel on putting those weekend classes together. And it ended up being an incredible treasure, especially because like I said, he passed just a couple years past that.
Mm.
But so yeah, so as far as lineages go, I like to say that I'm from William LeSassier's lineage, and he was a very inspiring teacher. And then yeah, the plants too, and my students.
Right.
Holy moly. I've
Mm.
learned a lot from my students about all kinds of things. Obviously plants, but also like being a good human and teaching and so forth. So yeah, I have to include the plants and my students in that
Mm.
who inspired me list.
Yeah. So when you started teaching for herbalists and alchemists, and that kind of put you on that teacher path rather than, student medicine maker, then you became teacher. So what brought you to starting the center, the Vermont Center of Integrative Herbalism?
Oh, yeah, I moved to Vermont.
Okay.
New Jersey, I'll stop there. New
Yeah.
Jersey wasn't working, and my family had spent a lot of time in Vermont while I was growing up. My family are skiers,
Nice. Yeah.
but
Me too.
but we also came up every summer. We spent our family vacation in Vermont every summer,
Cool.
and I loved it here. And then I started to meet people from here, and I loved them too.
Mhm.
And yeah, things around the turn of the century, 2000 or so, yeah, I knew
Mhm.
that I needed to make some sort of a switch. And I landed in Vermont, and all the doors opened, and people welcomed me, somehow, like, where I live now isn't the first place I landed. I landed at my mom's neighbor's house first. And then miraculously, a room in a house next door to Sage Mountain became rentable, and I rented it. And anyway, so I moved to Vermont, and I got
Mhm.
involved with a little free clinic that had grown out of Rosemary's advanced apprenticeship. Like I said, there's a lot of herbalists in this area,
Yeah.
and we all got together, a bunch of us got together, and wanted to find a more sustainable way of practicing in an accessible way. So we pooled, Larkin Bunce, Guido Mose, and I pooled our experience and set up this school, which is attached to a sliding scale clinic, which is very honestly ambitious and idealistic. And we are have been committed to continue to pull it off, which
Yeah.
hasn't been easy. But
Yeah.
our students are amazing. I mean, we really do raise good herbalists, which I'm super proud of. And
Mhm.
and we still have a sliding scale clinic. So,
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm a student of Seven Song, among other teachers, and I think one of the coolest things that he's a part of is that Ithaca Free Clinic and being able to help people at low or no costs. And it's an integrative clinic, so integrative, sorry, that word is hard.
integrative.
Integrative clinic. So there's like doctors, nurses, Reiki practitioners, and he's the herbalist,
Yeah.
among other people. And yeah, it is really hard, to be able to offer those services for free. So it's awesome that you're still able to pull that off.
It's partly tuition funded. It's like the tuition is the big thing that feeds us, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But yes, it's not easy. It's not easy at all. And also because it goes against the grain of our whole capitalist system too.
Right.
So, but we do feel really good about, and I know everybody who runs a sliding scale clinic is like,
Working
uh,
hard.
they're working hard and they feel really good about it for really good reasons. I mean, yeah, there's good
Yeah.
reasons why it's a worthwhile endeavor and why we feel good about the hard work that we do to make it happen.
Yeah. And then your students get to learn too through the clinic,
Oh
have
yes,
experience.
that's the best part. And
Yeah.
that's actually one of my favorite jobs at VCIH is that I'm one of the clinic mentors. So I help them create a proper soap note, especially I'm kind of hardcore about the assessment process.
Yeah.
I want to see those clues. I want to see that my students are finding the patterns and
Yeah.
getting an understanding of like what happened to this person, who is this person and what happened to them,
Yeah.
which I think these are the two fundamental questions to ask first. And yeah, like I said, I really enjoy guiding my students in finding those patterns and finding that narrative and understanding, yeah, like what's going on for that person, not just like, okay, you have a bellyache, have some chamomile, that's it'll work, right? But not if you have a bellyache every day, maybe, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So what is your process for that process? Like how do
For
you,
intake.
for the intake and for figuring out who that person is and what's wrong with them?
We used to be able to do it in person. We
Mm.
had the students were in our various little clinic rooms, but now it's on Zoom since 2020. And so we do it over Zoom, facilitated by breakout rooms. So students always have a partner. So the student and their partner will start the Zoom with their client and do their basically 45 minutes to an hour intake. And then we as supervisors show up, or they contact us, okay, we're ready.
Hmm.
And then we show up and visit with the client in the breakout room. Or actually we visit with the students in the breakout room, and we visit with the client in the main Zoom room, and discuss with them. So you're here for such and such and such and such, and then we answer the students' questions or suggest other questions that they might ask when they
Yeah.
go back in. And then the primary student is responsible for crafting a SOAP note, the regular subjective objective assessment and plan format that is kind of universal. But again, I'm particularly looking at that assessment piece.
Mm.
I want to know, did you figure out if this person is hot or cold or damp or dry or
Yeah.
yeah. And then they come up with a plan, and they have to submit a formula, and I have to make sure that all their math is right, and then we have all the herbs. Like I'm also the like
Uh-huh.
gatekeeper in terms of safety, and also making sure that everything is filled out properly to go through the apothecary's channels and so forth. So there are multiple layers to this clinic mentoring stuff.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but I do enjoy it, and I really especially enjoy watching the students grow, watching them go from sometimes beginner herbalists all the
Yeah.
way up to, yeah, clinicians. And it's
Mm.
um it's wonderful to watch them grow.
So yeah, you're noticing that the students are kind of getting what you're teaching them by seeing the formulas that they're suggesting and being like, yeah, that's a good one.
Often I'll ask them questions like I'll see their formula, help them like making sure that they again have well thought out assessments, and then I'll say, where are you going with that herb? They might
Uh-huh.
have like maybe a lot of a strong herb or something like that in the
Uh-huh.
formula, and I'll say, where are you going with that? Or
Nice.
if there's something that's a surprise to me, and see, where are you
Mm.
going with that? And basically, if they make a good case for it, if they have sound reasoning why they've chosen that herb, or why they've chosen that dosage, okay, try it, go for it,
Yeah.
But if I see something like, oh, maybe not that much, of that herb, we'll just
Hmm.
scale it back, or I think your formula needs to be a little juicier. What can we switch up here?
Nice. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, so what are some of the tenets of formulation? Like when you're treating a client or you're making a formula for someone, like the amount of herbs, the taste, how important is taste, how important is the synergy? Like maybe you could just speak a little bit to formulation for clients.
Sure. I think taste is really important for teas. I, I,
Teas,
I,
yeah.
I believe that very strongly,
Yeah.
especially a tonic tea that,
Hmm.
a remedy tea that the person will need to take regularly for a period of time to have it do its best work. I wouldn't want to drink a nasty tasting tea all the time. I will and have drunk really nasty tasting teas in acute situations.
Right.
But you don't want to force that on someone every day, right?
Yeah,
So
here's your motherwort chaparral bone set tea.
oh, no, thank you. Those were excellent examples of challenging tasting herbs. Um, but we being a sliding scale clinic, we have maximums, that students can't give amazing or huge quantities of remedy. But it's also not feasible for clients usually to, engage with four formulas and that kind
Sure.
of thing too. So formulation, being a student of Williams, I am a triangle theory, like triangle theory is the basis of how I formulate.
Mhm.
I also have been inspired by Jill Stansberry's Formularies book, which I only have one. My editor gave it to me because she's also published with Chelsea Green.
Mhm.
Um, But her books, if anyone listening is a clinical herbalist, buy Jill Stansberry's formularies. And the distillation sort of from what I learned from William and what I learned from Jill's books are the concept of you have a primary action, like the most obvious thing, and I'll give you an example in a second. And then the other two, so triangle is three herbs, basically, points on a triangle. And what I try to especially get across to my students is that those two other herbs can address sort of supportive strategies in the sense of the common example that I use is the common situation of having an infection, right?
Okay, yeah.
So your primary herb, your like go-to obvious is an antimicrobial, hopefully with activity against the pathogen that you're trying to deal with, right? But also like what else has to happen in a person's body to like fundamentally address that infection? So cleaning the lymphatic system or supporting the action of the lymphatic system to like get rid of the waste and then also something maybe supporting the immune system. And that's one reason I believe why we like echinacea for infections so freaking much because it's antimicrobial, but it's especially also an excellent lymphatic and a direct immune stimulant, right? It enhances the process of phagocytosis. So it covers all the bases, but there might be another situation where you have that primary herb, but you also, want to support the vasculature or support digestion, or maybe the person's raging hot and you want to have a, bitter or diaphoretic or something in there too.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's triangle theory. Like again, supportive actions. What combination of actions would best address the situation that I'm formulating for?
Yeah. And so when you're offering, a formulation or medicines to a client or someone, are you often working with teas and tinctures, or do you also work with oxymels and glycerites? Because you cover all of these in your book, of course, but what are sort of like your go-tos? Like, have you been more on the tincture side lately or getting more into other things?
In our clinic, that's a great question because in our clinic we don't stock an unlimited variety of remedies, but we stock a lot of bulk herbs and a lot of tinctures and then a few powders and a
Mhm.
few like infused oils and so forth. So if I'm practicing through the clinic, it's usually a tea and or a tincture.
Mhm.
And then sometimes a powder remedy for my own well-being. I've found powders very accessible, although I do have a straight up decoction going in my
Nice.
thermos here. But if I'm caring for somebody who, like a neighbor or a friend or whatnot, sometimes I'll just make something.
Mhm.
I'll make something in my kitchen special for them. And I really do. Lately, I have been quite interested in vinegar. So oxymels,
Mhm.
shrubs, things like that are because they're delicious. I think there's a lot to medicine that's delicious, and you want to take your medicine.
Yes, definitely. So with vinegars and oxymels, which are honey and vinegar
Mhm.
extraction, are you finding most aromatic herbs are soluble in vinegar? Do you ever mess with roots in vinegar? Like, what are some of the herbs that you find
Mm.
best in vinegar or oxymel form?
Aromatics for sure.
Yeah.
Like classically fire cider, is
Mm.
is a wonderful oxymel.
Mm.
Um, Vinegar is also a good solvent for polyphenols. So, and
Oh.
that's one of the things I like to work with shrubs. Well, there's not a lot of difference between an oxymel and a shrub, honestly. It's basically sweetened vinegar. Both of them are sweetened vinegar.
Mm.
It's just, do you do it hot? Do you do it cold? Do you
Yeah.
sugar in the case of a shrub or honey in the case of an oxymel? But again, like, and I point this out in my book, the lines between what all those medicines are very, very fuzzy. Um,
Right.
but polyphenols, especially thinking about tonics, are really important for our well-being. Polyphenols flip our genes. We hear a lot about, oh, they're so good antioxidants and they're also good anti-inflammatories, but how do they do that? By
Mm.
flipping genes, which is like like a whole nother level of my mind is blown by the amazingness of plants, right? And vinegar is also a good solvent for alkaloids
Mm.
because alkaloids are more soluble in an acidic liquid or menstruum or solvent, whatever word you want to use there.
Uh-huh.
So especially if you're working with an herb that has a lot of alkaloids, vinegar extracts are a really good way, first of all, to get away from alcohol, if your person needs to avoid it, or if you want to use a extract of a plant with a lot of alkaloids topically, like lobelia vinegar is actually really brilliant topically, as well as herbs that have berberine, right, being a really good antimicrobial. They work really well topically. And vinegar is a easy thing to apply topically
And cheaper than like an alcohol extractive.
and cheaper and
Everclear.
safer for the skin too, right?
Totally.
Alcohol is not actually good for your skin or
Right.
mucous membranes. So yeah, polyphenols, aromatics, and alkaloids are kind of like the special ones that vinegar is good at. But also remember that vinegar is like 95% water.
Yeah.
So anything water soluble
Right.
will usually extract well in vinegar as well. And one of the things that I did in my book that I'm like most excited about, because the other thing, again, my curriculum and so forth, but like I went there with all the questions that I had and what I would like to have in a textbook. So for the chapters are organized by menstruum, right?
Yeah.
Water, oil and fat, alcohol, vinegar, etc. And in each chapter, there's a little chart of what plant constituents are soluble in that liquid. And then at the end of the book, there's a big chart with all of it that I must appreciate my friend Hannah Ray Behrens. Who's actually one of my graduates, but also now a colleague here at VCIH. She teaches the pharmacology now, and she's brilliant, and she helped me a lot with those charts. So I have to give her credit. But it's really useful, like having that especially in chart form, like you just look it up and there it is.
That is really useful because I feel like that's one of the most common questions I get with herb students and herb curious folks is about solubility and the best extraction methods. So, yeah, having that all in one place like that is really amazing.
Oh, and that's curious to me that you get a lot of those kinds of questions. I'm glad that my book will help answer them.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you. Do you have a question?
Well, I was just wanting to follow up on the polyphenols flip our genes.
Sure.
What do you mean by that?
What do I mean by that? Well, so like antioxidation in the body depends on some enzymes, right? And so what genes are being flipped are the genes that encode those enzymes, like glutathione, right? Which is kind of the big one. So that's how they do it. They also code some of the signal molecules that help regulate vasoconstriction and vasodilation, which is a key part of how inflammation happens and opening and loosening the blood vessels. But also, tissues all over the body need blood because they need resources and they need someone to pick up the trash, right? So blood flow is really essential to like, especially brain function. So making sure that our blood vessels are flexible and in good working order enhances circulatory function, which enhances virtually everything else. And also, again, like supporting the blood vessels in their job to facilitate inflammation, but also hopefully resolve inflammation when the cleanup or the healing is finished. But like the easy answer to your question is, yeah, the genes that code antioxidants and the genes that code signal molecules that help relieve inflammation are flipped by the polyphenol chemicals. Isn't
Amazing.
that
Okay.
fun? Isn't that
Yeah.
fun?
Yeah.
Like really cool.
Yeah, it is. Really cool.
Last summer, I was teaching a group of students at Sage, and it was August when the blueberries are full on ripe, and
Yeah.
so I like studied. I do sometimes study. I give a lot of herb walks. I love to give herb walks.
Hmm.
Um, I like, oh, I love these students and I want to, give them some really interesting stuff. So I studied all of that like the night before the herb walk and, yeah, probably the night before the herb walk. And we were in the blueberry patch eating blueberries, talking about the amazingness of polyphenols, which was just like the perfect experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is wonderful. I mean, yeah. So I was thinking about saying, another great reason to eat your blueberries.
Yeah.
But blueberries are just such a wonderful. I mean, I'm a little obsessed with blueberries
He is.
personally. I've got like 90 blueberry plants out there that I've been planting over the last few years.
Hmm.
Good
Um,
for you.
Yeah.
well,
And
yeah,
me.
yeah, and everybody else who wants
Get to eat
I
them.
guess, yeah. But people don't always think about these blueberries and other fruits with high polyphenols as medicine, but they really
Mm.
are.
Good food really is medicine.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it really is. And when you get into dig down into the science of why that happens, it is really fascinating and it really does underscore that, yeah, they're actually, it's not just about vitamins and minerals. It's the phytonutrients are also like crazy important in how these vegetables and fruits do what they do. That's the other thing I teach at VCIH. I teach nutrition
Mm.
and I have a whole class on phytonutrients. So the polyphenols, carotenoids, glucosinolates, like why you should eat cabbages and berries and
Mm.
winter squashes and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Rainbow.
Hmm. That's why, yeah. And there's a lot of, like I said, interesting science about why we should eat rainbows.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I want to go back to medicine making and solubility a little bit more.
Mhm,
I'm
sure.
just wondering tips for making good medicine. You talk about, for example, like chopping up herbs. Like, why do we want to expose more surface area, for example?
Oh, so the flavors, constituents, virtues, all the things from the plant can get out of the cells and into the liquid. Plants have a membrane and a cell wall, so they're a little tougher. And obviously, there's a lot of difference in the consistency of herbs. Whether you have a dried root is can be pretty darn hard, or a lump of resin, or
Totally.
dried hawthorn berries are these really hard little things.
Mhm.
So especially with the woodier, tougher plant parts, if you don't chop, grind, or otherwise increase the surface area, you're really not going to get much. It's just not possible for the constituents and flavors and so forth to get out of the plant and into the liquid. But that said, there's a variety, like there's a spectrum, like there is with lots of things in terms of like sometimes maybe you don't want to like grind everything completely. Um, like if you're making a shrub and you don't want a ton of sediment, or if you're making any extraction and you don't want a ton of herb sediment in your extract,
Mm.
maybe not grind it up as much. But the more you grind up, chop up, or again, create a small particle size with a lot of surface area, the longer it might take, or you might need more energy to extract that plant. And again, decoctions are a perfect example of that. Like, why do we decoct roots and barks and seeds and whatnot, more hard, solid kinds of plants? And it's like you don't throw the whole root in there still,
Yeah.
like it's cut and sifted or it's chopped up somehow. But we use time and heat in those
Yeah.
situations, right? And then the opposite of that is like putting some whole lemon balm leaves in a jar of water and sticking it in the sun. But we know that the aromatic, especially, monoterpenes, the little fragrance molecules,
Mm.
are actually created on the surface of the leaves, especially in the mint family, right? Which is why
Mm.
you walk through that lemon balm patch and the
Yeah.
heavenly fragrance, right? So they're not, those fragrances extract more easily, right? Less need for chopping up, less need for time and energy in the form of heat, right? Although a
Mhm.
little bit of sun and again, no tea is going to extract immediately. But
Mhm.
on the other side, another way of looking at that is if you grind up a plant pretty finely and mix it into a stronger solvent, like a alcohol and water combination, you see it start to extract immediately,
You
right? It
do.
starts to get, the
Yeah.
color starts coming on right away.
Yeah.
And then shake or otherwise agitate that tincture every day. And you'll have a full-on tincture in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Because you've used all the principles, surface area, time, and an potent solvent and agitation to make it all go faster. I address this in the book, but I think I'm actually going to write a whole like blog post essay section to break down some of the more nuance of all of that. To have a website, when you publish a book, you have to participate in the marketing of said book. And
Yes.
I'm old enough that, when social media started out, I was like, it's gonna just collect data. I'm not going there.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was right, wasn't I?
You were right.
Again, have a book. So I engage with Instagram at Plant Medicine Maker, and I have a website at herbalpharmacybook.com. Actually, long ago when I still lived in New Jersey and did a lot of freelance teaching, I had a little tiny website for people to find out where I was going to be.
Mm.
Um, but I used a blog template when I set up the website. So I have a bunch of class handouts posted on there.
Nice.
So now I can add to that by picking a topic out of the book, like again, surface area, or
Mhm.
there's a couple other things I've thought of, like, oh, I could explain that better, or I could expand on that. And
Nice.
so I'll write some articles or whatever you want to call them and post them on my website because these are really good questions, like, and I try to frame it like a decision point. I present all these principles, like surface area, energy, and so forth. But like, how do you make those decisions? Like, what goes into those decisions? And so I think I could elaborate on that.
Cool. Yeah. I'm also curious about like the more magical or subtle influences in medicine making. For example, you said don't make medicine if you're in a bad mood. And one time I made a batch of salve when I was feeling very grumpy. And I accidentally turned the knob all the way around on the salve maker heating unit that I had, and I completely burned this batch of salve. That was like 400 salves. So, yeah, so
Oh,
I was like, that was a big lesson for me in not making medicine when you're in a bad mood. But what about other subtle influences like your intuition and like dreams as an instruction or the moon phases?
Yeah, I think especially if you're caring for somebody with a more spiritual, emotional, like more in that subtler realm, not less real, just less like quantifiable. The more of the subtle influences you put in that medicine, the better. An example would be like, again, here I'm talking about grinding the herbs up, right? And if I want to get the most medicine out of a given batch of herbs, especially if I'm going to tincture them, whereas,
Mhm.
tinctures you want to be concentrated and powerful. So you want to get all the stuff out. But maybe if, like somebody's been in a car accident or maybe somebody's been through a lot, maybe don't grind up the herbs in a like violent electric gizmo. Maybe
Yeah,
just grind it up in a mortar or something, just like
nice.
not to put that energy into the medicine, which is hard to say, if you're making a big basket tincture that's you're going to put in your apothecary or that you're going to sell at at the market or whatever. But yeah, I think that the more, especially for a serious condition, and again, I'm thinking serious like spiritual stuff,
Hmm.
the more you can think about the subtle influences on that medicine, I think the more the medicine reaches those subtle places in the person.
Yeah.
That's
Um,
good.
one of the cool things about plant medicine in general is that plants are living beings, right? So they have physical, see chemistry and flavor, and they have their own spirits and their own beingness and life forces and whatnot, which is the cool thing about working with them as medicine. But like, again, you're like, it's nice to include all of that. And then, like you said, if you're working with someone who's needs are more in those realms, you want to pay attention to those aspects of the plant, collecting them in the medicine.
Yeah. And I mean, if you look at traditional European herbalism, Culpeper, Paracelsus, Joseph Blaugrave, they're all those particular ones are using astrology to hone in the subtle power of their medicine. But they're all it's like make sure you harvest it on the hour of the day of the plant. And so they're putting a lot of intention into. I mean, there's all these other astrological things going on, but it's fundamentally there's this intention going into the medicine, and then that's how they're able to heal things that other people might not be able to heal,
Mm-hmm.
or things that are working that are diseases that are not just physical.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Exactly.
yeah,
Thank you for bringing Paracelsus into our conversation. He's quite the radical, wasn't he?
yeah, and Culpeper was too.
Oh yeah, Culpeper actually, Culpeper is kind of a like quiet but very radical herbalist for sure. And yes, I personally haven't like delved into astrology very much, but I'm with you on all of that. And like I said, thanks for including that in the conversation because that's important too, and for some people, like that's their framework. That's what
Right.
inspires them. So yeah, go there for sure. Get Culpeper's works are still in print. You can get them.
Yeah.
They've been in print the whole time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And as an astrologer myself, like that's kind of more my framework, but that's not the only framework available. There are even just putting good intentions into the medicine that you're
Intention.
making. That's another way of doing something similar, working with the subtle levels.
Exactly. Shake and pray every day. I,
Yeah.
I
With
didn't make
tinctures.
that up. I learned it at a workshop,
Yeah.
but yes, all of it. And that's why science and magic,
Mhm.
because I completely agree with you that all of it's relevant.
This reminds me too of the story you told about you do like a tea time in your classes sometimes where you would make a batch of tea with intention, gratitude, and then make a batch of tea using the same amount of herbs and the same amount of time and the temperature for steeping, and then let the students taste them. So, can you tell us about that?
Oh, sure. That class was part of a course in the Family Herbalist program that sort of the rest of that course, which was about communicating directly with plants, kind of got like morphed around when we decided to include some actual therapeutics because we looked at our family herbalist or year one program and said, oh, well, it's we're not actually covering what to do for what. We should
Mhm.
put some therapeutics in there. But I
Mhm.
had gotten so much good feedback about that particular class experience that I made sure to keep it. And so yeah, and I didn't make that stuff. I mean, what I do there, I didn't make it up. I learned it in other classes, but it's fun. So yes, I would make 2 batches of fresh lemon balm tea. And I
Mhm.
would try, like you said, to put exactly the same amount of lemon balm and use the same temperature water, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then I would give the students 2 little cups
Mhm.
and ask them to, just kind of meditate on the teas and try to see if they can experience a difference.
Yeah.
And they did. They often did.
Uh-huh.
And then I would give them another tea and have them put some energy into the tea themselves. Like they'd work in partners and have 2 cups of tea and put some energy just in like whatever worked, like some like white light or just envisioning love for the other student or whatever it was, some kind of positive vibe.
Yeah.
And then the third experiment was I made a jar of fresh ginger root tea. And I would again give each student 2 cups of it. And their goal there was to like by their envisioning and their vibe and whatever else they engage with, make 1 cup of ginger tea hotter energetically. And what I found over the years is I did this like 15 times or have done it like 15
Yeah.
times over the years that we've had school.
Mhm.
That one works the best. In other words, the
Cool.
clearest intention comes through the most accurately.
More
But
precise. The more
exactly.
yeah.
That's
So,
amazing.
And the students have a really good time with it, and it's also just like we sit outside and even since we've been online, like you can't do that experiment over the internet. So we do it during intensives yeah, we sit outside and just get opportunity to be meditative with these very simple teas. And the students have always really loved it. In fact, one of my former students, who's now one of the people who runs Rail Yard Apothecary in Burlington, just happened to be visiting VCIH to see if he wanted to be a student on the day that we did that class. And was like, oh yeah, that's
I'm
the school
in.
for me.
Nice.
And VCIH is kind of known as a sciencey sort of a school, but the magic's in there too, and the I don't want to call it woo, but
Can't help it. The herbs are magic and
yeah.
it comes through.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's why science and magic. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Like 'cause in the book, we just said, no, said the title, but it's the herbal pharmacy, the science and magic of preparing and administering plant medicine.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
like that, both. We try to do that here at the podcast too. Is like, sometimes we maybe overemphasize the magic just because I think that in the dominant culture, the science is overemphasized,
Yeah.
but it's both. Yeah.
It is both, and it's fine to emphasize the one that's getting left out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really is both. And like I said, that's one of the really fascinating and beautiful things about plant medicine is plants, again, they're living beings. They are embodying and they're affected by this cosmos just as much as we are and so forth. So yeah, it really is all real. The other
Yeah.
thing in my book, in the introduction, I'm talking about that principle of science and magic. And I literally invite readers, if you find yourself in one of these realms, I actually do invite you to explore the other.
Mm, mm.
Yes. Totally.
Yeah, I like that because it also I think on one level it's helpful for people to get outside of the frame of reference that they have because then they can see the weak points in it and like the blind spots because every frame of reference, every perspective has weak points and blind spots. And then also like if you strengthen then the perspective that you had, like the strong points, you're able to then see the strong points about it too because you're able to see it from outside.
Mhm.
So I like that, dual emphasis.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's partially why I was attracted to studying with Seven Song was because I felt like I didn't have a problem with connecting with the plants on like a spiritual level or just experiential level, but I wanted to learn more about all the constituents and the body systems and the science and the botany. So
Mhm. I
yeah.
think Seven Song is another teacher who has that balance in a good way,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially like, and Michael Moore was like this too. I think of Seven Song kind of like Michael Moore in the
Yeah.
sense that they really want you to have that experience with the plant, like direct experience.
Yeah. We have a whole day. There's 3 days of class a week, and one whole day was outside. We would be in nature botanizing with our big botany books.
In your
Yeah.
loops.
Yeah,
Yep.
in our loops.
Mhm.
Exactly. So
That's
fun.
where it's at,
Yeah.
like even there's a lot of online education these days,
Hmm.
and that's very accessible for many people and works really well for many people. But I think it's still, especially if someone's engaging with online education, that they still also engage with plants, like again, like take themselves outside and sit around and hang out and nibble and
Mhm.
feel and all the good sensual things that plants are. But
Yeah.
that's part of the experience. I was talking to a beginner student one time who came up to Sage and she said, well, will you have more beginner classes? And I said, you should just make lots of remedies. Like you should just like make tea every day. You should, go for a walk every day, like
Yes.
just do it yourself. You don't need
Yeah.
another person to feed it to you. You
Mhm.
you just need more up close and personal actual plant time. And that's how we learn like the full depth and breadth of who plants are, is by getting to know them and engaging with them. And I know I'm not alone in saying this.
Well, there's so much that with direct experience of the plant, and you can with any subject too. Like for instance, like meditation, like direct experience of your own mind. You can't know that from reading a book. Like with the plant, when you have the direct experience, there's so much that is transmitted that you can't put into words. And so how are you, you can't replicate that with books.
No,
Mm.
and it's even hard to put flavors into words. There's lots of coffee marketers and whatnot that try really, and wine marketers and whatnot
Right?
that try really hard to put words on flavors. But yeah, it's not easy because yeah, that direct experience of our senses is that's the most important thing. I agree. And how it makes you
Yeah.
feel, like your embodied experience as well.
Yeah, who are some of your plant friends that you are experiencing lately in relation with? Who are some of the plants that you're working with these days?
Oh, um, well, I'm most fond of the weedy remedies in general,
Mm-hmm.
but for my own well-being, I've been engaging with mushrooms. First of all, I sneak reishi in my coffee,
Yes.
but I blend it myself. I don't buy those she like fancy things.
Yeah.
But and then because of some family history, personal and family history, I've also been engaging with chaga, this is a chaga, dandelion, burdock, chicory, and then like cinnamon and stuff like that. And it's
Nice.
important to understand the sustainability of chaga because
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's not a fruiting body.
Right.
um, but the forest where I live is actually fairly abundant in it, and I have actually seen a couple of them, a couple birch trees that have fruited, not like
Hmm.
as soon as they fruited, but I got some really good pictures of one. I had been keeping an eye on this tree anyway because
Uh-huh.
it had a sclerotium like sticking out like a rhino horn like this. It
Hmm.
was big.
Wow.
And then lo and behold, the tree died. I've been keeping an
Hmm.
eye on this tree for a few years, and then the tree died, and the bark just blew open amazingly, dramatically because the fungus grows inside, right?
Hmm.
And then the top of the tree broke off completely just above the chaga. So
Whoa.
my neighbors and I are going to harvest that chaga
Yeah.
when we have a chance. It's in a little bit of a precarious spot and it's kind of high up, but so I'm just saying this for listeners because I know chaga is kind of a thing like, oh, go out and get some chaga. Maybe not.
Right.
But again, it's for what I'm working with in terms of, like I said, my family history and so forth. I think it's an important remedy, and I am blessed and privileged to have access. So,
Mhm.
so that's the mushroom that I am using in my decoctions this winter because I, like I said, I have access to it. But any mushrooms,
Yeah.
mushrooms are like deep fundamental balancers of the immune system. Like without studying, I can't explain it all out of my head,
Hmm.
but mushrooms do like very remarkable things with the workings, the inner workings of our immune systems,
Totally.
changing the balance of T cells and so forth, which is profound and amazing, like really amazing.
Mm.
So yeah, mushrooms is
Yeah.
my winter thing.
Yeah. I'm trying to grow some lion's mane mushrooms on blocks right now from Smugtown Mushrooms. Our friend Olga does the myceliated blocks, and it's so fun, like spraying them every day, like with water, like a chia pet, and watching them bloom.
But we've been drinking
Yeah,
reishi
reishi chai
chai
is
with
like what's on
hawthorn
our
berry.
stove.
Yeah, reishi, hawthorn berries, a little star anise, cinnamon,
Cinnamon, cardamom,
and marshmallow root.
Mm,
and
And
yeah,
delicious.
I
Oh, and I like the
know.
marshmallow root to like balance out the dryness of some of those other herbs.
Exactly.
That
Yeah.
sounds delicious.
We love our chai.
yeah, and
Yeah.
we're gonna have maple syrup season here,
It's
just starting. So we're gonna boil down the sap with reishi
yeah.
and
Oh, what a great idea.
maybe a little
That's a
bit of cinnamon.
fabulous idea. In fact, there's one chapter in my book that's glycerin and other menstruums because
Yeah.
glycerin like simple. So decoctions and tree sap are actually in my book.
Oh, cool.
And that's where they're located, is in that other menstruance
Other,
section.
yes.
But yeah, here you go. You gotta boil maple for hours anyway,
Right.
right? And you gotta
Exactly.
boil mushrooms for hours anyway, because
Exactly.
polysaccharides are giant carbohydrates, you know.
Yeah.
So it's the perfect medicine.
Mm.
Yeah, it really
Great.
is.
It
Works
It
is.
is.
And
great.
it makes like a really nice minerally
And there's
rich
bitterness.
flavor with a slight
Yeah.
bitter, and it's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The taste is wonderful.
Yeah.
Mm. Sounds
Mhm.
fabulous.
Yeah.
That's our
Great.
mushroom winter,
Yes.
early spring. But we have lots of hemlocks around here, and we have
Mm.
some hemlock coves that this seems like the reishi fruits on like a biennial basis, something like that, where there's like big
Big flushes
flushes.
and then not so much the next year
So
sometimes.
in those big flush years, we get harvest enough for a few years.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a good thing about, preparing medicines as in a stable way, well, drying them, but also extracting them. Like this year it was just a good year for self-heal too,
Mm.
and I found a big patch of really beautiful self-heal at the bottom of one of my neighbor's gardens. And
Mm.
I made a quart of fresh self-heal tincture, which was really exciting.
Nice. Yeah. What do you like to use self-heal for in your practice?
Oh, self-heal is remarkable. It's just this non-aromatic mint, it's, just a kind of a common, actually it's in my observation, it's gotten a lot more common in the last several years. But I use it partly as the way the Chinese use it to cool the liver
Mm.
Mm.
for people who get, short-tempered and flustered and whatnot. But I learned from Caroline Gagnon from Canada that it's a brain lymphatic. And so I use it that way. Like I had a friend of mine got over, they gave her too much anesthetic or something. And she's a very intellectual human and really likes her perky cognition. And she's
Mhm.
just drinking some teas and so forth because she's an herbalist, trying to regain her clarity of mind, and
Yeah.
nothing was working. So I said, here, how's some self-heal? Try this. And yeah,
Oh.
just a cup of tea, couple cups of tea, and
Uh-huh.
she's back to normal. But
Wow.
and then also especially think about brain lymphatics like after a brain injury,
Yeah.
which is
Makes
something I've
sense.
worked with people a little bit. And brain injuries are bad, right?
Yeah.
And also, no offense, but the medical establishment is not really good at helping people recover from brain injuries. Like the advice for no screens and stuff like that. They have excellent practical suggestions, but in terms of
Mhm.
nutrition or herbs, like, and this is also especially something that I emphasize with my students, is that's a general um, observation that our medical establishment is really freaking good at emergencies and so forth. I have no, like, their methods and their offerings can be incredibly beneficial and necessary. I don't
Yeah.
discount them at all. But also, I've noticed that they're not very good with convalescence, they're not very good
Yeah.
with like support to actually help heal. And I think that's one of the places that self-heal can be really helpful as in a protocol with, essential fatty acids and so forth to help people heal their brain.
Yeah.
And then it also like cools off the thyroid too, which self-heal and there's actually some really interesting science, which you think, why is science looking at this little weed, Um,
Yeah.
but there is,
That's cool.
and yeah, self-heal is just a really interesting, underappreciated plant,
Hmm.
Yeah.
and it's a mint. It's super safe and all that kind of thing too.
Totally.
And I see it in like very diverse. I see it in like
Yeah.
lawns and I also see it in old growth forests.
Right.
And it's
Oh,
in Pennsylvania in Allegheny National Forest. I remember the first time I went to one of the old growth sections there, and it was just it was self-heal all grown around those giant white pines.
Wow.
Uh,
wow. Thank you
yeah,
for sharing that with me. I find that's really fascinating. But yeah,
Yeah.
like the lawn here is full of it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
and I have seen more of it lately,
Me
but
too, actually. So it's funny you mentioned that. That's really cool.
It
and
also
so
really,
so So you prepare it mainly with the t fresh tincture and
Mhm.
then and tea as well. So the dried herb, it does fine in those in both of those preparations.
Yeah, because I have access to the fresh, I do to tincture it fresh, and then drying it is like red clover. It's one of those
Okay.
herbs that'll turn brown on you, and look not very fresh and good when if it's dried just laying out on a screen. So that's one of the ones I'll do it in the dehydrator so that it stays purple and
Mm.
still looks perky. So
Yeah, that's good to know.
yeah. Yeah, so dry it quick, but it's
Yeah,
fine for tea and it has a, innocuous flavor that's not gonna make the tea taste bad.
totally.
And then but it also, yeah, fresh extract is a quite nice preparation. And then that's all I've made from it. I haven't
Mhm.
made a vinegar or anything, but those are new things to try.
Yeah, don't see why not. Yeah.
I
Mhm.
imagine what is it? It seems in some ways similar to red clover to me.
Mm.
So is it? Do you think it would be better in like more of an infusion or more of like
I think
just
it's
regular tea?
great in an infusion or a tincture.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
Yeah.
really do.
Okay.
Hmm.
Great.
Cool. I'm excited to do a little more self-heal preparations this year.
Yeah, check it out. Get to know it better.
Yeah,
See what you learn from it.
totally. So what else do you have coming up for classes or, where can people find your book if they want to order online?
Oh, yeah. So my little website, herbalpharmacybook.com, because of course somebody had herbal pharmacy and I wouldn't want that domain anyway. So
Hmm.
herbalpharmacybook.com has the page of my handouts, but it also has a page about the book and there's a link there. So it's Chelsea Green is a small publisher, but they merged with Penguin Random House. So that's
Okay.
actually who it's ordered through.
Hmm.
The book will have global distribution, which is beyond exciting to me.
Nice. Yeah.
Um, and then also Sage Mountain's website, sagemountain.com, and VCIH's website, Vermont or vtherbcenter.org.
Uh-huh.
But my website, yeah, so it has my blog. It has the page for the book, and then it also has a calendar page, so you can see where I'll be. And
Mm.
I have been to very few events since COVID. Like
Yeah.
I used to get out a lot more, but the only conference I've gotten to since then is the International Herb Symposium in 23.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm very excited to get out and see a lot of old friends that I haven't seen in years, but also just like get out and meet new students and see new places. So in May, I will be at the Herb Day event organized by the North Jersey Herbalist Guild chapter.
Yes, I've heard great things about that event.
Yes, and it's all my old friends. That's where I used to
Great.
live.
Amazing.
I used to teach at that herb farm, in fact.
Amazing.
So yeah, I'm super psyched to get to see my friends and meet new people there. That's the first weekend in May. And then in June, I'll be at the Wild Indigo Herb Fest. And also I'm making a stop to do a medicine making class at the United Plant Savers Sanctuary. And then
Cool.
I'll be at UPS on Thursday, July 11th.
Nice.
And then I get to go to the Botanic Wise Conference and
I'm
the
going to that this year too. Yep.
Oh, good. So I get to meet you in
Yay.
human person, which is
Yay.
lovely. So
Woo.
yeah, so I get to get out and do some conferences and some workshops, and then I'll be at some bookstores. I'll be at an herb stores. I'll be at
Awesome.
Rail Yard Apothecary in Burlington on Saturday, April 11th.
Nice.
And I have, yeah, some more of those. And then I'm gonna teach in July, I'm gonna teach a weekend medicine making class, like a medicine making intensive at Sage Mountain. It'll be Friday evening through Sunday morning, all medicine making, including harvesting. Like the whole Saturday's going to be tinctures. It's the
Mm.
whole process of wandering around gathering stuff,
Oh,
and then
nice.
we'll make students will be making their own extracts with our supervision. And they'll have the option of alcohol, vinegar, or glycerin.
Hmm.
Um, and then Sunday we're going to make some oil extracts. And then next year, oh, and I do these like 4 element weekends at Sage also that I've been doing for the last few years. But the really exciting class in 2027, Emily Ruff and I are gonna, and maybe one other teacher are gonna put on an intermediate apprentice program that will be very much like Rosemary's apprentice programs, and like one
Awesome.
weekend a month for the whole season. And they will be intermediate level, and it will be an intermediate level course. We already have 6 confirmed students, so it's gonna go,
Great.
but there's
Great.
plenty more room for others.
Okay.
And we
Nice.
are planning that that will become an annual course offering. So sagemountain.com is the other place
Okay,
to find out
great.
where, with my other home base, where I'll be
Mhm.
teaching. And that's all in person, right? And
Yeah.
in the gardens in the forest that are they're
Mm.
the forest there is truly magical. It's
Mm.
that's my happy place.
That's
I spend
beautiful.
as much time out there as I can.
Love that.
So
Wow,
yeah,
beautiful. So you're doing so many cool teachings this year and next. I'm so excited.
yeah, I'm excited too. Yeah.
Yay. And I'm thrilled to see you at Botanic Wise in person. That'll be fun.
Yay. Yeah,
Yeah.
find me. I'll have a vendor table for I'm gonna be traveling with my friend Karen from Peaceful Harvest Mushrooms. And
Nice.
so but yeah, yeah, find me in the vendor tent or vendor space.
I will.
And
Okay.
I'll
Great.
have my books. Yes.
Yay. Awesome. Well, this has been so great to get to know you and chat with you. Thank you for being on the Plant Cutting Podcast, Betsy.
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity. I have thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with both of
Great.
you as well. And
Great.
yeah, thank you so much.
Pleasure to
Thank
meet
you.
you. Enjoy the rest of your day.